Hello everyone, this is Jotto and welcome to 25 Live for 20. Yeah, this is something which ivko has brought up, and it's a good thing because I was actually looking for a video topic. So basically, for anyone who doesn't know, ivko, who is the lead designer of balance and cards and things like that, released a roadmap? Yeah, roadmap update, and also a sneak preview as to what we're getting next week in the new patch, which should be around October 12th. So actually, what day is that? That would be next Monday. Okay, so I'll put the post itself in the description so you can read over everyone else's opinions yourself. But what he covered is, first of all, go over the roadmap thing. So, October, we're getting, basically, we get a patch a month. So, in October, we're getting rebalancing. Now, keep in mind, they do balancing with every patch. This is a big rebalancing, akin to the 25 life patch, which I call 25 life patch because that's like its signature thing, but it had a lot of other stuff in it. So yeah, we're getting a complete rebalance, and we're also getting the 3D battlefield, which is really cool. Then in November, we're getting tournament support and spectator mode, which is also very, very cool. And then in December, we're getting the tutorial, the full tutorial, and also all of the languages. And then at the end of January, the game will be released on Steam. In fact, January 25th is the Steam release date, which means that the game will start focusing more on new sets, and the game will expand its popularity a lot just by being on Steam. So, just looking at that roadmap, it's a fairly bright future, because that's a whole bunch of extra features which are very, very handy as far as card games goes, and on top of that, we're getting it on Steam. So, the other major thing he goes over is the 25 life paradox. Now, the idea is that they changed it to 25 life. Almost everyone's been positive about it, but they've noticed that since they changed the game to 25 starting life, the amount of new players that try the game and stick with the game has decreased. And they've established that the reason for this is because 25 life slows the game down, and a lot more people prefer faster paced games. Now, I think the way that they've managed to figure this out is because out of all the major changes that have happened over the last couple of months, the only one that really affects new players with the starter decks and like just starting out the game is the life change. Which is fair enough. It also nerfed aggro, which, regardless of what anyone says, most people play aggro. Yep. It's a bit of a paradox there in itself. Everyone plays aggro and everyone complains about aggro. So yeah, that's kind of amusing. But anyway, so what they're going to try and do is switch back to 20 life, and then they're going to rebalance the game to compensate. So they're going to nerf red. They said red in particular, but there's probably going to be some major changes. But they're going to nerf red, and they're going to change the life totals back to 20 in the next patch. Now, what I find interesting about the whole thing when it comes to changes in the Spellweaver community, and this is something which comes up a lot in every card game, and game in general, every single time a change is suggested, it becomes the apocalypse. And everyone disagrees with it, but then they go through with the change anyway, and it works out. Like, let's look at the Cataclysm nerf, or the nerfs to like all of those major decks back when, or even the 25 life change in the first place. It was changed to 25 life, and everyone disagreed with the change, and then everyone liked the change. Think about that. Just think about that for a second. The dev team actually does know what they're doing, and they haven't made a major mistake yet, as far as balance patch goes. So I would give them the benefit of the doubt as far as that is concerned. But anyway, so what I'm going to do in this video is talk about how their reasoning for the change relates to the reasons that they changed it to 25 life in the first place, and I'm going to infer from that which one is better for the game, considering that they don't change anything. But they will, but the point is, if they don't change anything apart from red, where does that leave the game, and is that a better state or a worse state than it is currently? So, yeah. Not a very clear throw today. Anyway, so First things first, why did they change it to 25 life in the first place? Now, looking back at it, I think there's 3 reasons that they did. The first one was to nerf red aggro in particular. The second one was to promote a mid-rangey style of play, and the third one was to make underused aspects more playable by providing them more time to set up. Now, if we look at these 3 goals, red aggro became worse, yes. However, red mid-range, which is more of an aggro-y mid-range deck, stayed the same, and I would argue that before the patch, red mid-range was actually better than red aggro. So I would say that in that aspect, it failed. In terms of promoting mid-range, that was a success. Mid-range was promoted, and a lot of decks that came out of that patch were mid-range. So, success right there. As far as making underused aspects more playable, we're talking about 3. So basically, for those of you that haven't been playing for very long, Spellweaver has this history of having 3 aspects that are really good, and 3 that are really, really bad. So the good aspects are Dominion, Rage, and Wisdom, and then the bad aspects are Order, Nature, Corruption. Now, Order had Angels, but when that was nerfed, they were left with nothing. And the 25 life actually nerfed Soldiers even more than it was already nerfed. So what happened is they got a new tool, Guards, and they got a Musketeer buff, but because of the life total increase, it just turned out that the buffs didn't do anything. They just counteracted the life total increase, but Soldiers was already a bad deck. So as a result, the buffs to Soldiers did effectively nothing. Then if we go on to Nature, Nature is seeing a lot of play right now. Like, the best deck in the game, arguably, is Mono Nature. Is that because of the aspect? No, it's because of the hero. Nature has this history of having overpowered heroes and useless cards. This is just something that they have a history of having. They've got Advanced Neva, Basic Neva, Kayanu, all of which have their own decks of varying strength, but the point is that they all propel them single-handedly, and no other heroes do that. So, well, I guess Basic Despina, but Basic Despina is a combo piece hero as opposed to just being like a value hero or a normal hero. So if we look at these 3, we've got Basic Neva decks became worse because of the life total increase. Advanced Neva decks became better, but that was because of the buff itself, not because of the 5 life total. That, and I would argue, it's actually too strong right now, and a life total decrease may fix that to some extent, although I do think Neva's going to get a bit of a change. I'm not really sure what change, but maybe even the cooldown in Reverence needs to go to 4. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about here. Kayanu does get worse with the life total decrease, but honestly no one's building decks with Kayanu at the moment because he's so hard to build with, and I think that Kayanu will have his time to shine at some point. Probably when a future set comes out when he gets some more tools, because every single time there's a 3-cost 2-level creature, you have to look at Kayanu. So, that's Order and Nature out of the way. Well, I mean, there's one more thing, which is Order and Nature, which is Hermeleon actually gets stronger. That Hermeleon Treant deck does get stronger with the life total going back to 20, and I'm not talking too much about the newer heroes as far as the change to 25 life goes, because they actually came in the patch with the change, which means we never got to play with them with 20 life, so that's just a valid point there. So, yeah, as far as those 2 aspects goes, 25 life is worse for both of them, and 20 life balances out Order and also Nature more effectively. On top of that, Angels can win through life gain, and life gain I would assume goes back to 2040 as opposed to what it is now, which is 2550, and that's actually a buff to Angels' win conditions. So yeah, Order and Nature does get better. Now if we look at the third basically never used aspect, we look at Corruption, which is the worst aspect in the game right now, I think. So Corruption has 3 main strategies: Zombies, Demons, and Succubus Reanimator. If we look at those 3 corruption-focused things, I'm not talking about control plus like wisdom, things like that, even that's not really strong. Like, corruption controls on the side, you got corruption dominion and corruption wisdom and things like that, but when we're looking at corruption-focused decks, we really got Succubus Reanimator and then Zombies, Demons, which is actually kind of convenient because it means I can talk about each one with each of the 3 heroes. So with the Enoch decks, which are mostly Demons, both get stronger and weaker. Now, it gets weaker because you have less life for Demon Portal, but it gets stronger because all of your threats end the game faster, and also Enoch becomes stronger because the life total switch he gives you is more effective because everyone starts with less life. So I actually think Demons gets a boost in the end. As far as Zombies goes, Zombies gets a pretty major boost because they have an issue finishing the game right now. And they have lots of really powerful early threats like Insatiable Ghoul, which is one of the strongest 3-drops in the game, more or less. It's just in a bad aspect. That, along with Entangle from Nepharos, can actually push more damage now effectively, and that may buff them up a bit. I still think they need something else, but the point is that it does buff them up just inherently. Now, besides that, they're still going to have a few issues. I think things like Harpy start becoming more essential for corruption decks, which may push Harpy to be a good card again. It's already good, but it's not like amazing. Depends on how much aggro there is, and depends on how much red aggro there is. Because Harpy's actually bad against a lot of red decks, because they can fireball it. And also it accelerates them to like burn and things like that. But against other forms of aggro, like elves, it's very good. So that's where things get a bit strange. Now, if we go on to Succubus Reanimator, Succubus Reanimator just gets straight stronger, and the reason for it is because it means that you need 7 Succubi triggers to win the game, and it also means that you need 7 Succubi triggers to win the game, and and attacks. So realistically, that's probably 4 Succubus, and you win, which is very, very doable. With Nepharos, you're playing 3 Reanimate, probably 4 Succubi, and the Hero Power. That's enough. That's enough to actually win the game with that. So I would think that Succubus Reanimator becomes stronger by switching back to 20 life, considering the fact that they change absolutely nothing, which will not happen. But the point is that I think that the 3 underused aspects will become more playable by switching back to 20 life. And this is something I want to address, actually, that I think Clone brought up. And this is what I found hilarious, because me and Clone have a history of we never seem to agree with each other. But sometimes we really do. Like, we really agree with each other sometimes, and this is one of them. The game was designed for 20 life. And this is very obvious when you look at some of the underplayed heroes. The game itself was designed for 20 life. And even some of the newer designs that were built with a 25 life game in mind seem like they were built for 20 life. So if we look at some of these, the only heroes out of all of the new ones that I think were built for 25 life are Coronis and Kyanu. That's it. Because if we look at Hermelion, he's designed to end the game quickly. Elric, getting value for less mana, giving you a tempo boost. This affects the game more at a 20 life total. If we even look at Burke, like, yes, he takes more damage, but you're also accelerating your clock more effectively, meaning you can end the game before something like Advanced Zash comes online, which is why Burke is not playable. So if we look at all the new heroes, besides 2 of them, and I would actually say that Cronus is very weak and doesn't see any play, and Kyanu is just really hard to deck build for. So basically, it's only 1 playable hero is designed for 25 life. The rest of them are not. And I feel like everyone's missed this. The game itself was designed for 20 life, and as a result, a lot of balance issues came out as soon as 25 life came up, like Advanced Zash and Advanced Never became close to unstoppable. That's the product of 25 life. That increased life means that those kinds of heroes become a lot stronger. And you may think, hang on a sec, so why didn't things like Wisdom Dominion become a lot stronger? Well, they did. But the thing is, Wisdom Dominion was nerfed in the same patch. An extensive amount. It was nerfed a lot in one patch. So, and it still stayed a tier 2 deck. Think about that. It got nerfed a lot, but it stayed a tier 2 deck because of the life gain increase. Because of the life increase, compensating for their lost life gain. Now, if we were to convert back to 20, you're going to see a few things. First of all, again, no changes to the game. I'm not going to talk about red, because that will be changed, guaranteed. Advanced Never becomes slightly weaker. We've got Despina decks and Darius decks become slightly weaker. corruption becomes stronger, nature aggro becomes stronger, and before anyone says it was dominating, nature aggro has, this came up a lot in the forums actually, that was, if we go back to 20 life, then we'll go back to nature dominating, but I don't know what game was being played back then, but nature was never dominating, it was never a tier 1 deck. It was considered a tier 1 deck for a very small period of time, but I don't even think that was a tier 1 deck. I just think that no one else had come up with anything else yet. And that was when Lamp was 1 blue. But Lamp got changed to 2 blue, and Elves dropped off completely for a month or 2 months before the 25 life patch. In fact, it was not being played at all. And as soon as the 25 life patch happened, it just ceased to exist. So that's the kind of thing which people need to realize here. I've seen a lot of people talking about how if we go back to 20 life, we're going back to cancer meta, but what they haven't realized is that the game has changed a lot since then. We got probably upwards of 30 different changes to various cards and heroes, along with the 25 life change. So the game is a lot different. And we haven't actually seen the current state of the game with 20 life, and I think it may be better. On top of that, it will make the game faster paced, which is better for new players that just want to sit down and play for a bit, and honestly it makes the game a lot less grindy. Now, as far as something else goes, the starter decks. Now the starter decks are bad, yes, they're very bad in fact. I may do a video at some point, if people want to see it obviously, going over the starter decks and what I would do to update them. Again, put that in the comments if you want to see that kind of stuff, because I'll note it down for one of my next video topics. But anyway, so the starter decks are awful. However, the starter decks were designed for 20 life, first of all, and second of all, the starter decks have always been bad, but people still stuck with the game. So something else has changed. The starter decks have always been terrible. Maybe that they're just getting worse because of the life change, but I think that it'd be better to assess what's wrong with them with a life total that they were designed to accommodate. Just think about that for a second. The starter decks themselves were designed for 20 life. In fact, a lot of the game was. All the stat numbers on creatures were designed for 20 life. So if that's the case, then maybe we should change the game back to 20 life and then fix the starter decks when the glaring issues with them become more obvious when you're actually using a life total that makes sense in the context of the game. Because 25 life, as much as I've benefited from 25 life, playing mid-range decks for the last two months, I can acknowledge that the game itself was not designed for 25 life, and it was a very arbitrary change. It was a nerf to rage, basically. But if they're changing rage to compensate, then I actually think going back to 20 life would be good for the game. It would also mean that some of the cards that are borderline overpowered, like Bloodseeking Mutant, become weaker because aggro is stronger. But things like Force Mage Protector stay about the same because red is getting weaker, but aggro is getting stronger. So it becomes better, but then worse at the same time. So I actually think that the game itself would benefit either a lot or a small amount from a 20 life. It would also mean that trials are more bearable. 25 life in trials is really boring. Just random comment. 25 life in trials is really slow, and it means that going through a trial run can take upwards of 3.5 hours now. Whereas it used to take about 2.5 to 3 hours. Now it can take up to 3.5. I've even had 4-hour trial runs now, because it's so hard to deal that last 5 points of damage in a lot of situations. So I actually think that the game as a whole would benefit a lot from switching back to 20. Now, as far as the rest of the stuff goes, I'm expecting to see a lot of changes. I'm really excited for the 3D battlefield. I think that, if I recall correctly, they outsourced it, so they haven't really had control over when it's been finished. But I'm really, really curious to see how it looks. And on top of that, we're getting spectator mode, which means that for the Asperia Cup in November, we're going to have spectator mode, which is a big, big deal, and means that things are going to run much more smoothly, and we don't have to have people streaming to watch their games, which is amazing. So I'm really, really happy about that. But anyway, thank you all for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback, want to ask me any questions, put it in the comment section below. And if you want to see the updated starter deck thing, put that in the comments as well, because that will be a fairly large video topic, so I'm not going to do it if no one asks for it. But anyway, as for now, this has been Jotto, signing off.